Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming. So let me just tell you how I reached this conclusion. I'd gone to Alaska for my random walk, and we had taken this small plane, landed at the base of Mount McKinley, and I had taken this amazing photograph, which I was trying to send to 10 of my best friends all around the world. And I remember that I was really angry on my phone because it was taking so long for this photo to upload. I could not fathom the fact that it was taking 10 seconds for this photo to travel 100,000 miles around the world. I came back to Chicago and I was listening to a very funny comedian called Louis C.K. And he was talking about how there are all these amazing technological advancements around us, but how it is wasted on the crappiest generation of all time because we don't appreciate anything, and we are always whining. I think back to the time when I was born, and my parents were in Europe at that point of time, and they were trying to inform my grandparents in India, and they sent a letter back home to India, and it took 13 days for that letter to arrive home. I also think about the fact that I'm standing right here in Chicago in front of you. A couple of 100 years ago, it would have been almost impossible for someone like me from my country to be standing here in Chicago, and vice versa. I mean, theoretically, it would have been possible for us to do that travel, but it would have been almost like an odyssey. There would have been various adventures on the way. I would perhaps have had to fight dragons and rescue princesses. Stories would have been written about it. It would have taken 50 years. Now, it takes 18 hours, I think, for a Delhi-Chicago flight. And the entire duration of that 18 hours, I'm complaining about the fact that I don't have leg room, I can't move my seat back. So the entire miracle of human flight is less miraculous to me because I had to take my shoes off at Heathrow. I also don't understand people who talk about the golden old days when everything was amazing and you could stand outside and smell the sweet air. I can bet you that 200 years ago, if you were standing outside, you wouldn't like what you smelled. Because guess what? Modern sanitation is a relatively recent invention. And yes, there were no modern toilets till at least 1870. So that's some food for thought. And speaking of food, obesity is an epidemic now. And there's too much food. Now, I don't want to trivialize the very important issue of obesity, but in the history of humanity, there has never been too much food. In fact, our entire lives have revolved around the fact that there's a shortage of foods. Food was not something you had and then went about doing other stuff. Food was all the stuff that you did. You hunted, gathered, created food, and then you ate that food, and that was your life. That was all it was. And we have seen similar improvements in health and nutrition as well. The average life expectancy at birth was never more than 40 years till the early 20th century. Except maybe for the top 5 people, the kings and the queens and the dictators. The rest of us common folk were all expected to die at 30. So, think about that. I want to talk to you a bit about the Moore's Law. You all know about this, how information is doubling so fast. And what this really means is that to each and every one of you in this room, the amount of information and raw computing power available is more than that available to Einstein, Darwin, and Newton combined. And what do we do with all that information? We complain about information overload. There's too much knowledge. And we have these amazing devices which tell us the answers to our deepest and most complex questions, and we lose them at TNDCs and parties. So, can you imagine how long it would have taken me to make this presentation if I did not have the internet? I would have had to use these ancient implements. I don't even know what they are. And it would have taken like 25 to 30 days for us to come up with this. So the question is, why do I think it's important for us to be happy? And the answer to that is, though everything is amazing, everything is not amazing for everybody. There are still huge disparities in the world, and just the magnitude of problems facing humanity right now are immense. And it is my fundamental belief that happy people can solve problems. Now, if you look at the 5 parameters that I've spoken to you about, we have seen almost a trillion-fold improvement over the last 500 years. And if that trillion-fold improvement even translates to a 1,000x improvement in your happiness, I hope we will be able to solve more problems. Now, each and every one of you has more resources available to you right now than a king or a queen would have had in the 18th or 19th century. And even after those resources, if you're not able to change the world, or forget that, just lead happy, meaningful lives, then there are really no excuses for that. So I guess my message for you to take away from this presentation is just be happy and get on with it, whatever the it may be in your own life. Thank you.